Welcome to Mulready Minutes with Oklahoma Insurance Commissioner Glenn Mulready. This is a podcast about insurance for insurance folks, risk managers, and business leaders. We'll dive deep and look at what is and isn't working, talk to leaders in the industry, and keep you informed on what's happening in Oklahoma and around the country.
Welcome to another Mulready Minute podcast. Oftentimes in this podcast, we get down to the weeds with some insurance issues. Sometimes we're giving a 30,000-foot view of something. But today, I'm excited because we have something very special. It's our first non-insurance guest for our Mulready Minutes International podcast. And remember, I met a guy from London who tells me he tunes in, so we can now say it's an international podcast. So super thrilled to have our Lieutenant Governor with us today, Matt Pinnell. And Matt has been a good friend for many years, long before we were both in office, and so just thrilled to have him on here. And I'm going to read a quick bio, just so I don't miss anything. There's a lot of details with that role. And so Matt was elected as the 17th Lieutenant Governor of the state of Oklahoma on November 6th, 2018. In that role, he serves as the President of the Oklahoma State Senate and is a member of multiple constitutional boards and commissions. Lieutenant Governor Pinnell also serves as the Secretary of Tourism, Wildlife, and Heritage on Governor Kevin Stitt's cabinet. In this role, he oversees the Oklahoma Department of Tourism and Recreation and the state's efforts to promote tourism, the third largest industry in Oklahoma. Pinnell led the successful effort to rebrand the state of Oklahoma, a component of the overall effort to retain and recruit more jobs to the state of Oklahoma. He also currently serves on the Department of Commerce Executive Committee, focusing on small business growth, entrepreneurship, and workforce development. We'll hopefully hear more about that in a little bit. And Matt has a background in entrepreneurship and is a small business owner with his lovely wife, Lisa, who's an inventor and entrepreneur. Matt is a graduate of Oral Roberts University with a degree in advertising and lives in Tulsa with his wife and their 4 children. So, Matt, welcome.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, we're glad to have you on here.
Absolutely.
So
to your international podcast.
I
love it.
I was at a conference once, and there was a guy from London who came up to me and told me that he tunes in every time, and so I now say I can say international.
Yeah.
So we just rattled off a bunch in your bio, but tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, I grew up in the Tulsa area, and when I was in college, I was interning at Ackerman and McQueen, and that's certainly an advertising company that most Oklahomans would know. And that was kind of the plan. The plan was to go work for a public relations advertising company. I loved sales. I loved PR, and I kind of took those skills that I learned in college and early in my career and started working on political campaigns. One political campaign kind of led to another political campaign. My wife and I went out to D.C. for a couple years, but came back. And so one campaign literally over the last 20 years has kind of led to the next, and ended up running myself about 4 years ago, which feels like 27 years ago, but it was only 4 years ago. But I get to use the skills again, kind of my background. I've said many times I think the Lieutenant Governor office was kind of tailor-made for me, and as a salesperson, because that's really what the job is. From a 30,000-foot view, the Lieutenant Governor helps sell and promote the state of Oklahoma. We have a small business background as well, my wife and I, so the other swim lane that I have is heavily on the Department of Commerce side of promoting small businesses and entrepreneurship programs in the state. We were behind. I would say we've really caught up over the last 4 years in that space too. So, that's kind of my background and why I feel so blessed to be in this position, because I actually get to do things every day that I'm passionate about, and that's why I ran for the job.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And if you're not from Oklahoma, Matt is all over the place, and so you talked about felt like 27 years.
Yes.
I wondered as you said that. Okay, and how many miles? Because there's a bunch of miles.
Man, I couldn't tell you, but we have 77 counties, and I know I've been to every one of them over the last 4 years. I haven't visited every one every county every year. The previous Lieutenant Todd Lamb visited every county every single year. I don't think I've done that. I may have just done it just stumbling upon me going to so many events. Yeah. But I have fallen deeper in love with the state of Oklahoma over the last 4 years, visiting all of these amazing places, and it gives me something to be able to promote every day. We're not reinventing something that we're not. That's what's great about my job. Like, no state really can match the heritage and the history of the state of Oklahoma. We're very unique. And if we just play to those strengths as a state, we're going to sell really well. We're going to get more people to show up here. They will move their businesses here or retire here. But you have to promote it. If you don't invite people somewhere, then they're not going to show up. And I've certainly noticed that over the last couple of years too.
Well, I will personally just applaud your work and effort, Matt, sort of the Energizer Bunny of state officers. But Matt is out there just constantly. And so doing lots of ribbon cutting and selling as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things we've been doing, too, on that side, because I use that same term on the insurance side, that I'm out, we're in sales mode, and we've got pop-ups. We're attending conferences, selling to try to attract like captive insurers to our state. So we're in that mode.
Your department does an amazing job of that. You're right. Every agency has a responsibility to be promoting what they do, what space they're in. And I remember, before I was lieutenant governor, I'd see these ribbon cuttings, ceremonies. What people have to understand, that when you're cutting a ribbon, that means a small business that is being opened. That means more commerce is being had across some part of the state of Oklahoma. It's not a photo op. There's people behind that ribbon that are doing business inside the state. We have to remember that. We take the photo to be highlighting and be bragging upon whatever we're cutting a ribbon for. And I certainly have a much more of appreciation for politicians, you as insurance commissioner, or any politician that is standing in front of and cutting that ribbon. That means jobs, that means more sales happening inside the state, which then funds everything else that we need to do inside the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah. So you, like me, have been in office now we were right at a little over 3.5 years. Yeah. Looking back in your first term, as you round out your first term, what were some big wins?
Certainly the rebrand, to rebrand literally the entire state of Oklahoma was, that's right, was quite the lift. I don't know of any other state that has really been through the same process that we went through. It was a volunteer-led effort. We recruited over 200 just volunteers that kind of work in the PR ad space across the state to come together to help rebrand the state. And really what that meant, it was really through state government agencies. We have to remember we have over 200 state agencies in Oklahoma. They all kind of had their own logo and their own brand. We weren't one Oklahoma. And I think what we have been able to do, and it was a blessing in disguise for us to launch this right before COVID hit, for the governor to hold a press conference, in front of a step and repeat banner that's behind him on the news every night, to have one uniform brand does matter. And that was a huge lift, certainly. But also, when COVID hit, it was prime time for our Department of Tourism as well. We had millions of more people visit the state of Oklahoma. We had millions of more Oklahomans that were just wondering, okay, what is there to do in my own state? So we launched this OK, Here We Go campaign, kind of catchy, OK, Here We Go, and just to tell Oklahomans why they need to be spending money in Oklahoma and not Arkansas, not Texas, but what you can do in Oklahoma. So those were a couple really big wins that we had in a few of the areas that I'm involved with.
Yeah, I know in our house when COVID hit and at the lake, the boating season and lake season started a lot earlier than typical.
Yeah. I mean, RV sales are at an all-time high in this country. Boat sales, all-time high. I mean, good luck finding a boat. Good luck finding an RV pad site at any of our state parks this weekend. Outdoor recreation is booming. It is booming, which means it's booming for the insurance industry as well, because that's a whole lot more product that has to be insured. But we are seeing unprecedented growth at our state parks and unprecedented growth at our lakes. And that's good for Oklahoma because, again, that's more people coming to the state. We want to sustain that, though. The word that I use is sustaining that growth post-pandemic, so we get more and more people showing up here.
And so if you were to take a pie chart, the Office of Lieutenant Governor, how does that break out? You talked about the Department of Tourism, but others, what's that look like?
Year one, probably about 90% of that pie was really on the branding of the state. And it's probably been 60-40 tourism commerce. Year two, it's probably been 70-30 or 80-20 with commerce to tourism over the last year and a half. Some of that due to a whole lot more people moving to Oklahoma. It's a real impressive story. I mean, we're the 11th fastest growing state in America post-pandemic. Over 35,000 people have moved to the state of Oklahoma over the last couple years. So we have all these people are moving to the state. We have all these companies proactively talking to Oklahoma about places to find where's some good industrial parks or land to buy. So it's a good problem to have, but I wouldn't describe it as a problem, but it means that there's growing pains. There's a lot of staff over at our Department of Commerce who have never been this busy. Mm-hmm. And so that I've been spending about 80% of my time over there over about the last year.
So what do you hear from companies when you're talking about they are talking about moving here or looking at that? What kind of things are you hearing, good and bad?
Yeah, I mean, on the good, you have companies in, I call them anti-business states. I call them states that are full. Texas is getting full. There's 30 million people that now live in Texas. I mean, there's twice as many people in Dallas as the entire state of Oklahoma. It's remarkable growth that Texas has seen, and it has seen over many, many decades, and they deserve some credit for that. But now they're getting to a point where, a lot of those employees are getting cranky. It's an hour and a half, 2-hour commute to work. I mean, the price of a home there is out of whack, and so they're now looking at Oklahoma. And they should be. They should be looking at Oklahoma from an affordability perspective, from a workforce perspective. We have some of the friendliest people in America and skilled. We have a lot of skilled labor. So we hear that a lot. A lot of companies love are pleasantly surprised by our career tech system that we have here, which is world class. I think over the next 10 years, one of the areas that we have to address, along with every other state, because it's not unique to Oklahoma, is that word workforce, as I just said. We have a good workforce. Oklahoma City, 20th largest city in America today, which is pretty darn impressive. But we have to make sure that we have a workforce in other parts of the state as well. We have to grow everywhere, not just in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, if we want to recruit businesses back to rural Oklahoma. And so developing a workforce, keeping our homegrown talent in the state, and having a boomerang program and bringing Oklahomans back to Oklahoma, I think has to be a priority for us over the next 10 years. This next decade of between now and when we're going to do the census again 10 years from now. We're going to have a boomerang program, a very aggressive boomerang program to help refill this state up with good people and that have the kind of work ethic that we want.
Yeah. Well, your comments about trying to attract that, it reminds me, I tell my family members that live out of state up in New England, that move to Oklahoma. I call it Lifelight.
Yes.
Half the expense, half the hassle.
Yeah, that's good. I should start using that. It really is a great selling point right now. The remote working environment as well. I'm very intrigued by it. We're only in the first couple years of this, so we'll see if that is sustained as well. But when a company in San Francisco, for example, with a young working adult that's spending $4,000 on a one-room apartment per month, if they go to work on Monday morning and their company says you can now work remotely, do you think they're going to stay in San Francisco? Probably not. They're probably going to look at something much more affordable. And I think a lot of those folks are going to start looking at places right in the middle of the country.
Just in the last couple of days, one of my sons was talking to a friend of his from high school who did an internship in San Francisco. And picture this, your internship as a sophomore in college, and his apartment, we was with 3 guys. They were each paying $2,400 a piece for their apartment in San Francisco.
It's insane. And I just think, these younger generations, millennials, but I'm not even talking about millennials anymore. I mean, heck, I'm a millennial and I'm old. I'm talking about Generation Z now. That will have as much buying power as baby boomers in future years. If they can work remotely, if they can, these companies that big national companies that know that is a way to retain talent. I think that rise of the rest, as Steve Case has kind of dubbed it, who Mr. AOL. A lot of these states in the middle of the country and cities in the middle of the country, it's prime time for them over the next decade.
Okay, and you mentioned millennials and age, and so on air. I want to
Yes.
wish Lieutenant Governor a happy birthday.
Thank
Yesterday
you.
was his birthday.
Appreciate that.
He and I are the same age. He's just aged much
Yes,
better than I have.
That's
So.
right. We are not millennials anymore. That's right.
Yeah. So let's shift, if we can, a little bit to small business and entrepreneurship. I mean,
Yeah.
you and Lisa are in that space and have been for a while. Talk to me about, well, tell us a little bit about that business, but then if you would kind of segue to what we're doing here for those small business and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean, another big reason that I ran for office. So my wife, I mean, it's due 100% to her. So she's an inventor and an entrepreneur. She invented the Binksy Baby shopping cart hammock. So your trivia answer today, the shopping cart was invented in Oklahoma.
It was, yeah.
And now the shopping cart hammock. So if you go anywhere with a shopping cart, you'll see a mom or a dad or anybody pushing a shopping cart with a little hammock that's clipped into that shopping cart for babies that can't sit up yet. That was my wife who invented that, and when I tell this story, I always see a few heads nodding in the audience. I thank you for buying my wife's baby product. She's invented a number of other products since then. So she's got 3 or 4 products that she's invented. A shopping cart cover and a number of other products. Very proud of her. She taught herself how to sew, and I remember her tinkering around with this idea about 10 years ago. So she developed it, patented it. And now operates that business out of Bixby, Oklahoma, ships her products all over the world. So very proud of her. But we didn't need a whole lot of startup cash because the mom blog world is the most powerful force on human earth, and moms loved my wife's baby products. But most any business needs help, whether it be a mentor, whether it be, startup cash. And we were behind.
Or all of the above.
All of the above. And in Oklahoma, and what I'm getting at, those are accelerators. That's the word. Accelerators and incubators. Well, you can go down to, unfortunately, Texas and Dallas and Houston. You can go to Kansas City. You can go to St. Louis. And there's incubators and accelerators everywhere. Thankfully, in Oklahoma, there is now. We have a lot of accelerators. We have a number of very impressive incubators where you have now startup cash. You have the investor community in Oklahoma that has really doubled down on this. When the early days of just me being lieutenant governor 4 years ago, there wasn't as many conversations around this. You have the Thunder launch pad here in Oklahoma City. So the Oklahoma City Thunder have invested in this. So the good news is there's not a week that goes by without me having a conversation with some city that is launching an accelerator or launching an incubator. Tulsa and Oklahoma City have world-class incubators and accelerators now. And we have a lot in rural Oklahoma too. So that is just any business. And an entrepreneur can be young or old. I don't care what age you are, but you have to know where to go in your community for help and plug into that help. If you can't find it, we're going to have more of a brain drain happening in the state, and that's unacceptable for me, who's raising 4 kids in the state. And I'm really excited, again, over these next 10 years to see where we can go when it comes to that accelerator and startup cash, those angel investment firms that are popping up in the state. Really excited about those firms. And I think that will mean more companies staying in Oklahoma and not setting up shop in other cities and surrounding states.
Yeah, good. So I made the point a little bit earlier, but I think that in the insurance world, I'm singing from the same hymnal.
Oh yes.
As far as just messaging and doing business here in Oklahoma, and so talking with companies about coming here or about starting here in a you're not going to find heavy-handed government.
Right.
I say at the department that we're gonna check all the boxes. We're going to do the due diligence, but we are going to be a business-friendly state.
Yes.
We're going to be responsive. We're going to be fair. And that has been well received in the insurance world for my 3.5 years there too. But I think it's sort of the same messaging, which is just sort of fun, just trying to grow the state together.
It is, and I've heard that feedback from companies. Again, I mean, it has to be all of the above. They're going to look at insurance. They're going to look at utility rates too, right? They're going to look at all. And to be able to sit around a table with all of those key players in the state, a lot of other states can't do that. It's too bureaucratic. It's too big. We're nimble. And we have heard from companies over the last a couple of years that to get all that leadership and all those power brokers around the table all at once, and that we play nicely in the sandbox together, that's a differentiator for us against other states. And yes, to be pro-business and business friendly, that means in the insurance world too. It all helps lock down and get a yes out of a company versus a no. And I've certainly seen that over the last 4 years.
Yeah, that's great. So looking ahead, I don't know, 10 years, looking down the road, what do you see for Oklahoma?
Again, going back to that state to the south of us, I think North Texas is growing into Oklahoma, or I guess I should say Oklahoma growing into North Texas. So, over the next 10 years, towns, cities that I see some very big growth opportunities, the Ardmores and Durants of the world. Oklahoma City is only a couple hours. I mean, we're talking about one of the larger economies in the entire world, the Dallas Metroplex area. So I am fairly fascinated with that state. I know I hate to say it, as an Oklahoman, but it has to be more than just beating them in football. Okay, I'm tired. I'm done with that joke. We need to partner with the state of Texas. We need to be the largest alumni associations for OU and OSU are in Dallas. So we have people cheering for Oklahoma and Oklahoma State and all the rest of our teams every weekend. I think over the next 10 years, if Oklahoma grows, we have 3.9 million people inside the state of Oklahoma. In 10 years from now, when we do that census again, I think a lot of the growth, if we're, I don't know what the magic number is, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4 maybe. We grew by about 200,000 people over the last 10 years. Could we grow by 400,000 people over these next 10 years? We're kind of on our way right now. I mean, again, as I told you, these first couple of years, we've had the 11th fastest growing state over the last year. So we could do that, but as I tell people at every Lions Club and Rotary that I speak to, we have to cast a vision for this, that future. If we don't say how many people we do want in the state, then we're just going to be on that hamster wheel, unfortunately, down at the state capitol. I think we got to post a number. I mean, I think we, kind of like you see at, the YMCA, fundraising campaigns, they have the thermometer, right? How do you raise $10,000 for the local YMCA? I think you got to put 3.9 million on a thermometer and say, what number do we want to hit? And I've told people I'm going to start going on taking these traveling billboards with me as I go around the state of Oklahoma and leave those behind at every Rotary and Lions Club and Kiwanis Club. Those are the leaders. Those are the ambassadors for our state, and we have to have that conversation. How do we become more business friendly? Whether it be insurance, education, healthcare. For us to grow and grow the right way over the next 10 years. That's the future. We'll continue to debate issues down at the state capitol, but we got to keep the big thing, and that's private sector job growth.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you can see why I was excited about having Lieutenant Governor on with us today, our first non-insurance guest, but just the excitement, the enthusiasm, and Matt, there's nobody better to be in that role, just out selling our state. So we really appreciate the job you do. I do personally very much appreciate all that you do. I know Lisa and the kids pay a price for that.
Yep.
And I feel for them because you are out selling and leading our state. So thank you for your leadership.
Well, we love partnering with the Department of Insurance. You guys have led very well over the last 4 years, and a very good brand nationally. Our insurance agency and industry in Oklahoma, and I'm not just saying that because I'm here. I hear it, and so I can't thank you enough for the way that you lead. And again, if we can come around a table and be that one Oklahoma that I believe we can be, we're going to start beating a whole lot of other states to a whole lot of deals, and that means we're going to be able to keep our kids and grandkids in the state that I hope they want to be able to raise their own families in.
Yeah.
I know we all want that.
What do you say? From your mouth to God's ears. Here we go. Oh, we're coming for you.
That's right.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Mulready Minutes with our Lieutenant Governor, Matt Pinnell, joining us today. And we'll see you next time.
If you found this episode informative, please subscribe and share with your colleagues. Visit oid.ok.gov/podcast. Let us know what topics you would like to hear about on this podcast. Until next time, take care from the Oklahoma Insurance Department.